Okay, continuing on with 2.8. Now we're going to look at evaluating combinations of functions like we have here. We're just given this graph, so we don't actually know what the function of f is or the function of g. We just know what their graphs look like. So this straight line here going up like that, this is the function or the graph representing the function g of x. Same thing, here is the graph representing f of x. And first question is, what is f plus g of 1? So again, this 1 is in place of x. So what you would do is go to your graph. Let's look at g of x first. So we go to where x is equal to 1, and we come up to wherever the graph is for g, and go over to wherever it's equal to on y. So actually in this case, my drawing's not that great, but it should be where y is equal to 1 for g of x. So for it's not working. So for g of x, where x is 1, you're actually going to have a y value of 1. So your output will be 1. Now let's look at your function f of x. So again, go up to wherever your 1 hits your graph for f of x, and go over to its y value, which is 3. And we're adding them together, so you have 3 for the outcome of f of 1, and you have 1 for the outcome of g of 1. So your final answer in this case will be 4. Now, let's go down here to number 2. Again, we're going to have f of 0, g of 0, and we just look at the graph where x is equal to 0, and we go to each one of the graphs of each function. So right off the bat, we're looking at 0, 0. Well, that's the graph for g. So when x is 0, y is equal to 0 for g. Now let's look at again your 0 for x for your f function. So that's going to come all the way up here to where y is equal to 4. Now we plug them in. So we got 4 minus 0, which is simply going to be 4 again. Let's go ahead and do multiplication and division. Let's do a different number. Let's do a negative. So let's do negative 1. And then let's do division. F divided by g. Let's make this another negative. Let's do negative 2. I'm trying to pick numbers that are easy to decipher on my graph here. So we have f of negative 1, we have g of negative 1. So let's look at negative 1, which is right here. Let's go up to the first graph, which is g of x, and that's going to be at, again, it's supposed to be 1, but my drawing's not that great. So your y value is going to be 1. Now let's go all the way up to the graph for f. Again, it's going to be right here, and that's at 3. So now we've got 3 times 1, which is equal to 3. That's your answer there. Now coming over here to the division, let's look at negative 2. Well, write this out so we don't lose anyone. Let's look at x being negative 2. So that's right here. Well, it's pretty easy. For f of x, your y will be 0 because it's lying at the x-axis where y is 0. Now if we're still looking at negative 2 and we go up to the g function, we're going to be sitting at what should be negative 3. Or it should be positive 3, I'm sorry. So now we've got 0 over 3, which is equal to 0. And that's all you do here. Again, they're going to give you whatever x value you're wanting to look at, and you just come over to your graph and you come up to each one of your graphs, or it might be even down. You know, if it was something like that, you would come down to it, and then you would just go right over to wherever your y value is. And their graphs will be drawn a lot nicer, so you can actually see the corresponding y value pretty clearly. So that's it for this type of example. Now, just like before, we had a graph, but now we've been given a table for each outcome. So if we were to say, but we don't know what the function f or g are, actually what they started out to be, we just know their outcomes. So if x was -2 and we plug that x into the function of f, our outcome would be -5. And likewise, if we plug -2 in for x and the g function, our outcome would be 0. So that's, as you move down the table, that's the way you would look at it. So now let's do our first question over here. It's f plus g of 1. So we want to know what the outcome for each one of these functions are where x is equal to 1, and then we're just going to add them together. Well, so we're going to go down the x column, and we're going to look at the row where x is equal to 1, and we have the outcome of 1 and 6, and we're going to add those together. So 1 plus 6 equals 7. It's actually really easy. The hard part is just interpreting your table. So let's go down to number 2. We have f minus g of 0. Again, 0 is x, so let's look at where our x is equal to 0, and we know we have these two outcomes. So we have -1 minus 4. Well, it's just simply going to be -5. Okay, let's look at number 3. We have f times g of -1, so that's just going to be f of -1 times g of -1. So come to where x is equal to -1, and we have the outcomes of -3 and 2, so we're just going to multiply those two together. So -3 times 2, that's going to be -6. For number 4 here, we have f divided by g of -2. So now we come back up here to -2, and we have -5 divided by 0. Well, we know we cannot divide by 0, so there's actually no answer here. No solution, however you want to say it. Undefined, no solution, null set, whatever floats your boat. So that's it for the table. Let's move on to the next type.